Will the coalition support the government's PRRT changes in the Senate?
Well, there you go again. So the PRRT obviously is very much a new tax, and it's going to affect particularly gas producers. This is of concern to us because the gas producers are already under so much pressure. They originally had price caps put on them, which was an unprecedented market intervention. Then they had the additional safeguard mechanism, and now they're having the PRRT. Problem is, of course, that all of this is deterring new investment in gas, which we know is the transition fuel that is going to take us to a net zero future as we transition to renewables. We need more gas in the system, and it seems that those new investors are being turned away. Now, we know industry have said that they accept the changes to the PRRT, but to be honest, this is an industry that is exhausted and is now just looking for a final resolution. It's almost conditional. Look,
so you will oppose it?
As long as it's the last thing, the last thing.
Will you oppose it or support it?
Party room process. Andrew, it hasn't been through our party room processes yet, so I can't answer that question for you. We do know that industry support it, but it's because this is an exhausted industry. We want to see more investment in the gas industry. More gas fields open up. Scarborough, Narrabri, Beetaloo, Bass Strait, all of those need to have further investment in them if we're going to get to that net zero future that Labor is so determined to get to using renewables.
All right, Ken Henry warned about his words, not mine, poor buggers who'll pay more in income tax to service the old, won't be able to afford a house, will have to deal with climate change. Has either major party in politics got an answer for them?
I think this is actually probably the most pressing question, and I've spoken to my party about this before. You know, every generation in Australia, every generation has always said, if I work hard, if I study, if I start a business, if I save my money, if I do all the right things, then I have the chance of doing well and doing better than the generation before me. Except for this generation now. And I think that's a real shame. If we can do anything, if we can do anything in politics, it should be restore that sense of hope and opportunity in that next generation. And that doesn't seem to be on the cards, and particularly this constant negativity about how the future is going to be disastrous, how costs are going to go blow out, how taxes are going to be higher, how it's going to be impossible for people to buy a home. How about we find the solutions to those problems rather than just simply pointing to the fire without a bucket of water? And I think that's fundamentally important. That's the first responsibility of government, and it's where this government is failing.
Jane Hume, I'll tell you where the government would point to, their IR reforms. They'd say they're better for young workers, but what do you think they'll do to the economy?
Well, would they really be? I mean, let's face it, if it wouldn't be, it's not just us saying that productivity is one of the most important things to a growing economy, to a successful, prosperous growing economy. Philip Lowe said that you can't have wage rises without accompanying productivity. How do you get productivity? Well, you get productivity through things like having flexible industrial relations system, like having more supply of energy, cheaper, lower cost energy, and of course by cutting red tape as well. Again, we seem to see the government saying one thing and doing another, holding a review and doing nothing with that review, except conducting another review in response. So we would actually like to see some action on productivity, genuine action on productivity, rather than just lip service.
All right, on The Voice, we finally get a date for it this week. It's October 14, that's not a secret. Do you think the vote will fail? What will that mean for Indigenous people? Do you think a lot of Australians just want this over with?
Do you know, I think this has been such a tough time for all Australians because, let's face it, we all want to see a constitutional recognition of Aboriginal Australians. We've been talking about that for decades, starting with John Howard, right through Tony Abbott and Prime Ministers subsequently and coalition leaders subsequently. We all want that. And we were working towards that. Unfortunately, Anthony Albanese politicised The Voice and decided that he could move away from finding a consensus solution to recognition of Indigenous Australians in the Constitution. And he's gone the way of The Voice. And can I tell you, there are lots of people like me and my party whose heart said we could get here. But unfortunately, the question that's been put before us, my head and my gut says we cannot support this. If we can't understand it, if you don't know how it's going to work, how can you support it? If you don't know how it's going to work, you can't change it, and it risks what we have, which is a constitution that has underpinned the most functional, successful liberal democracy in the world. Well, how can you risk that? So this is a missed opportunity, and it's on Anthony Albanese. I don't think the Voice referendum will succeed. That is an opportunity lost, and it's on him.
All right, should a cross be a no on the voting ballot?
Well, I know that this is really a common sense issue, and I think it's really important to point it out. It does seem to be an inconsistency. I know that it's occurred in the past, but let's face it, I think we want to make sure that integrity is central to the Voice referendum. That was certainly what we were fighting for when we were doing the referendum machinery bill. We wanted to make sure that we saw the pamphlet restored, a yes and a no case explicitly stated, which was something that the government didn't want, but it was something that Coalition pushed for. We wanted to make sure that both the yes and the no case we've got equal treatment in terms of their tax situation, that they all both got DGR status. The Yes campaign already had DGR status. The No campaign have only recently got that. These are all integrity measures. We wanted to see official yes and no organisations that were sanctioned by government, so we could put the right integrity measures around them, around donations, foreign donations, foreign interference. Unfortunately, that's something that the government didn't pursue. This is essentially just another integrity measure that would give people comfort that the result at the end of the day is as clean and neat as possible.
Nearly out of time, just a couple of brief things. Were you looking to challenge James Paterson for the #1 spot in the Senate?
Andrew, I don't talk about other people's pre-selections. I'm certainly not going to talk about my own. But what I have said, I think, in the past is that James and I are very good friends. We work very closely together. I'm absolutely certain that we will both be returned to the Senate and that we will both be a part of a coalition government led by Peter Dutton.
All right.
I don't think that's in any doubt.
And just brief.
Can I be very clear though?
Yeah.
Pre-selections are up to party members. They're up to party members. They're not up to us.
All right, just very briefly, the by-election result overnight, obviously it wasn't against Labor at the state level, it was against the Greens. What did you make of it?
Oh, I'm so thrilled about this. Of course, I was out there at the Warrandyte by-election yesterday. Nicole Werner is just an excellent candidate. She has really worked incredibly hard. She is the future of the Liberal Party. She's young. She's lived her values every day of her life. She's from a migrant family. She's articulate. She's engaging. She's so good with constituents. I am so excited for her, and so should the Liberal team here be in Victoria. I do feel that the tide turned at those ballot boxes yesterday, in those lines as people queued up to cast their vote. We heard a resounding support for not just for Nicole, but also against Dan Andrews and this corrupt and tired government that we have here in Victoria.
Jane Hume, thanks for your time this morning.
Great to be with you, Andrew.